allegiance to the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bozak,
Here.
Commissioner Insland,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving,
Here.
Commissioner Scott,
Here.
Commissioner McCarg.
Here.
Commissioner Snobble is absent.
Okay. Approval of minutes, June 8th, 2022.
Second.
Roseanne, discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Insland,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Reports, Roseanne,
Nothing.
Angie,
Nothing.
Brad,
Nothing.
Jen. Treasurer is absent. Emergency Attorney Clay,
Nothing, sir.
engineer. I know he responded late, you know,
Thought he sent a message
it was like just
that
before
they,
5.
yeah, we don't have any, I think it was yesterday, I thought. Got from Global, we don't have any new items for the engineering portion of the agenda Wednesday.
I'm sorry, the one before 5 was the other engineer for council. Apologies. Okay. REC, consultant, Tina.
Good evening, commissioners. I'll just report on the Northwest Indiana Ready Grant kicked off last month. So we were given some greater details on some of the nuances of the funding of the program. And basically right now I'll be working to get a more detailed budget. They need the most specific budget and timeline that we can provide for Westport. And again, the Ready Grant is the $1 million to support public infrastructure on that project. The deadline for that is by September, mid-September, to provide that budget detail and timeline information. And then last month, we did have a few business inquiries into various sites within Burns Harbor. So I just continue to facilitate questions around that. And then if they are interested in moving forward, just coordinating with the building commissioner on that process. Tonight, we will, on the agenda below, you'll see we have a couple of Marquette Greenway items as well as Westport. And I just want to make a correction to the old business item number 4, the Marquette Greenway Corridor Plan. The RFP representative selection was already done at our prior meeting, at the June meeting. So that we can relabel, but we do have the consultant team, Planned Environmental Associates, present tonight. So you'll see John Rubble, who's the director of the organization, and he'll be just introducing himself tonight and talking a little bit about the coastal program grant and his role in facilitating the consulting side of that. With that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you, Tina. Sean is not here. Correspondence. All right, old business, Marquette Greenway Trail update.
Okay. I'll start with phase 1A, that's the CMAC grant. Glenn Peterson of SEH submitted the stage 3 plans to NDOT. Those have been reviewed and approved. So we do have the ability now to proceed with the right-of-way acquisition of the Macaulay property. And that is under contract through SEH for right-of-way services. And at this point, Mr. Peterson is anticipating that land acquisition of the Macaulay property would be completed by October, barring any unforeseen issues. The one thing we are aware of right now is that getting appraisals on properties is a little bit challenged. There's a lot of the firms are pretty busy themselves. So at our NDOT quarterly meeting, they really stressed the importance of this phase 1A staying on track so that we can aim for a March 15th letting in 2023. If there's any delay in right away, that might push us up to May of 2023. But I expressed the preference of the redevelopment commission in the town is the March letting. So we'll need to stay on top of land acquisition to make sure that we don't have any pressure on that letting date. For phase 2, last month, we did have on the agenda for, we had put that project out to bid for construction. So this is the kind of the Westport area part of the trail, the RTP, the 2 bookends of the project. So we competitively bid that. SCH evaluated the submittals and provided us with a bid tab and award recommendation. And based on that evaluation, the award recommendation is to Reeve Riley as the lowest responsible bidder. So I would need a motion by the board to award to Reeve Riley.
I'll make a motion to award Reeve Riley.
Sorry. Any discussion? Roll call please.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
Just with this project moving into construction, that does activate Avon Marsh to serve in that construction oversight role. And that would conclude services by SEH on the phase 2 project. The last, let's see, Glenn Peterson provided a note regarding phase 3. It sounds like that there have been some, so this is the next level trails portion that was completed. They're having some issues with the beacons. Glenn is coordinating with Rob Wesley here at the town and the manufacturer to get those replaced. So he's working with the contractor to get that accomplished. The last item, just an update on phase 1B. So this is the portion of the trail that would go over Norfolk Southern and towards the town of Porter. I am in discussions and coordinating with Nick Loving regarding 2 options for that phase. So we have the funded, the raise grant. We have construction dollars set aside to build that trail. However, there's a second route that we could pursue that would potentially save dollars and allow us to build the trail faster. And that would be going through, applying through the state next level trails for that section. And so what we're looking to do, and President Loving advised to go ahead and kind of investigate this alternative funding route to see how that might compare and enable us to accelerate the development of that trail. So I will continue to report back, but that funding cycle for next level trails will be coming open soon. So that is part of the reason we're having the discussion now, is to explore that in preparation for a potential grant application. And because we're talking about Marquette Greenway, would it be okay if I go ahead and jump down to the corridor plan? So this is our Lake Michigan Coastal Program grant, where we're going to create an operations and maintenance manual, as well as a corridor manual to help guide the stewardship and operation and maintenance of the trail and greenway after its completion. So as I mentioned earlier, tonight we have Mr. Ron Rubble with us, who is with Planned Environment Associates, and I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the project.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Thank you, Commissioners. Again, I'm John Rubel. I'm the Principal Landscape Architect and owner of Planned Environment Associates. Based in Chesterton, Indiana. I'm a Chesterton graduate too, so know the area very well. And I've got a lot of experience working on trail projects too. One of the projects we referenced in the portfolio was doing an operations and maintenance manual very similar to this. I did with the City of Portage and the National Park Service for the lakefront properties up there too. So kind of using that as a model, getting into the nuts and bolts of, what are your frequencies of maintenance for each type of item out there. For asphalt, what are you looking at? For your furnishings, what are you looking at and how often too? So that'll all be spelled out as part of this report. And then also, we know this is, the market greenways come in multiple phases, and there's other areas that, part of the town that, getting to Lakeland Park or whatever, and understanding how we can leverage the Marquette Greenway and provide those additional links to the town. What are potential opportunities to get some revenue capture out there, other events that can be done. So working with Tina and working with you to understand what kind of events the town's holding, can these maybe move towards the Marquette Greenway to again start capturing maybe some potential revenue or getting more people out there that can help make sure that these trails are taken care of over time too. So we know that's always an issue of, get the capital funds from the grants or from the state to build it, and then, how are we having a good plan to take care of it for the next generations moving forward. So as part of this process, and I'm sure you've all seen our proposal, but this first step is we're really gathering the data, understanding all the different phases you're working on, the different players that might be involved as far as National Park Service, Shirley Hines too. And then within the next month or so, we're gonna have, get all the stakeholders together. This board is obviously gonna be invited to, but we'll probably do maybe 1 or 2 days where we'll set up out here in town and have like a series meeting. So maybe, 1 hour National Park Service comes in, and it's Shirley Hines and Cleveland Cliffs, interview kind of each stakeholder that was identified in this process. And maybe there are some combinations of those two, but kind of set up here. And then each one of those days probably dedicate an hour or so to just go walk the trails, do a tour with anybody who might want to actually go physically walk out there, talk about things versus kind of sitting in a room and looking at maps too. So that'll kind of be mapped out a little bit more. Tina and I are kind of working on getting that stakeholder list. I'll kind of draft out so kind of potential how I think that these days might work here, and kind of get some feedback and refine from there. And then following the stakeholder tours is when you'll kind of start seeing these draft reports come out. So each month their RDC meets, I'll come and provide some sort of update, whether that's being what we've done this month, what we're going for next month too. And as we get into draft reports and all that, I'll make sure that you're getting those plenty ahead of time of any board meeting, so they get packets and are able to review, to ask any questions you might have. And, I'd be happy to, each meeting when we have the reports, do kind of a summary PowerPoint presentation or something, just to flip through, maybe not go through every last, word in the report, but just kind of give a high level overview, to anybody else who might present to the public. And I think that's the basic process, and I think we're looking by the end of the year to have the report completed. I think as some adjustment, we're looking probably in November, having a draft report October, November, with the final kind of being in December by the end of the year too. Tina and I met last week, 2 weeks ago, and we started looking at the Lake Michigan Coastal Program grant. We're going to adjust kind of some of the dates on there to make sure that their schedule is extended to capitalize on those funds that are available from them too. So, any questions?
I don't think so. I'm not asking questions out of disrespect, but I think you're pretty clear. The only thing I would add is maybe that stakeholder meeting would be better to have in the fire department.
Yeah, we had talked about that as the space that would be available to do it.
We can ask Bill about that. That worked really well for the ribbon cutting for the trail here.
Great.
So it was nice because it's closer to the trailhead. We can and access both at the same time, so
Yeah.
let's ask Bill if we can use that room instead of this one.
Yeah, and really all I would need is just tables and stuff. I'll bring boards, I'll bring maps, I'll even bring refreshments and stuff like that to the groups that are there too. We just need a room to house that in. And I always think using a town facility, being close to the site is always best if we need to run out or take a look at anything.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
We're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you all for the opportunity here. Forward.
Thank you.
So we did have an opportunity, John provided a contract, and that was, I shared that with Mr. Loving and Mr. Patton, and there was just the minor adjustments to that, but I believe that the contract is good to go in terms of signature. So we may want to have a motion authorized to sign that contract.
I think everybody saw, should have received that, it just changed the payment terms to 60 days just because of the time frame of the receipt, or I guess when it's sent to receipt and approved by this body, and then not to exceed amount, so.
To be clear, so we're all on the same page. Data collection analysis, 4,000, not to exceed 4,000. Stakeholder engagement, 6,000. The plan document itself, 21. Public outreach education, 2,000, not to exceed total 33,500.
I'll make a motion for Nick to sign the contract.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
Thank you,
have a hard copy, I'll sign that.
Perfect, thank you.
That concludes the report.
Want to go back to number 2, Westport PUD?
Yeah, with Westport PUD, again, we're just continuing to work internally on the finance of the project, doing an internal review, as well as moving forward to schedule time with Holiday Properties. So this is something that, again, there's been a little bit of delay with some vacation times and things like that, but we'll get that lined up here in August to be able to proceed to the next step.
Just let me know
Mhm.
I'm not traveling for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
If we can do it, that'd be great.
Yeah, part of this is waiting for the return of Jane now.
Yeah.
So we all took our turn.
Very good. All right. Number 3, hiring of a press release person. Are you giving that any additional thought?
Okay, notes. You'd ask for. Like a list. Or ideas of scope of duties.
All right. Videos for YouTube, videos traveling along different sections of the Market Trail, modified as needed as connections are made or new sections open up. The point being to highlight the scenery and amenities once Westport is open. Number 2, photo PR, occasional photos of trail and Westport building in progress. 3, organization of photo ops, ribbon cuttings, shovels, town officials and developers looking at blueprint type of photos. And finally, press releases themselves, regular press releases from a bunch of different news angles, transit-oriented development, bike tour from Westport, main stop along the trail, bike tourism, urban tourism, train spotting, development opportunities in Burns Harbor and commercial opportunities. Thank you for that. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I'll just give my opinion. I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to have all of the things that Brad had on his list be done. I just don't know how we can pay someone to do it. And I don't think you would ever get anybody to do that kind of work pro bono,
Right.
because nobody would do that for free.
Unless it was a project at school.
Is it like a high school program?
But it's,
But
but
then
it
you
would-
still have to have somebody oversee it.
and it also wouldn't be reliable, because if you're a volunteer, you can't tell a volunteer what to do, it's at their good graces. So we start with maybe committing to publicizing these events and come up with a way to crowdsource pictures that get taken at events like this. So for example, the public stakeholder meeting. Do we take pictures while we're there?
We could certainly do that and create a story around that. And build it. You know, I would see it as like we have categories that we want, like Marquette is, you know, a story. Westport is a story. If you want to focus on neighborhoods within Burns Harbor, if you want to highlight businesses, I would kind of categorize it in kind of those big ways and then drop stories into that. So what's coming up that's related to Marquette that we can create content out of? What's happening in Westport that we can create content out of? What's happening in town, et cetera? What's happening in business? So there's some things like that we could start and begin to identify, you know, between now and the end of the year, what are some of the key events or project milestones that we can leverage for cover. And then maybe we can ask around in terms of, you know, certainly when you have consultants, we can take photographs where we're at events, but if you have something that's more in the public domain, you may want to ask if, you know, someone would be willing to take photos and share that. So there's a little bit of volunteering that you can do. Or you do some, you know, contracting with some independent folks to do that, so.
You know, a lot of this, some of the photo stuff is kind of simple if you have actually have an event. It's just takes somebody going that little extra bit and actually sending it to a mailing list or the local paper or whatever. I mean, believe it or not, if it's free content, they're desperate for it, especially photos. You know, so I mean, you know, take a halfway decent photo, type a caption under it, and send it to their email that they have set up for that sort of thing. And it's that simple. It's all free and takes about a minute.
Well, why don't we aim to do, you know, one thing this month as a start and, you know, getting some type of article or content out. And we can just kind of build from there, but it's okay to just kind of maybe dive in on one article this month and see what we can do with
Why don't
that.
we build around the stakeholder meeting?
Okay.
Can we do that?
That sounds like a good idea. You know, because it generates interest in you and also what we're doing in Burns Harbor.
Absolutely, and I think with the amount of stakeholders that are involved, it's very impressive list of everybody, and I think that could really grab some attention too. So, you know, with stakeholders, it's going to be more than just me from my team that's up here. We'll capture a lot of photos of the events, of the trails too. So we go and kind of keep those in a place to share with Tina, share with this group, and you know, if there's any help that I can provide to help writing caption or small copy, I'd be happy to. So.
How do you want to get it out there? Like, are you are you gonna post it on the Facebook, or, I mean, who's going, you know? I mean, I take pictures at all the park events that I go to all the time, we share on the park's Facebook page, but are you asking for more? Like, I guess I'm maybe missing that part, and so where do you want are you asking people to write an article and paper and send it into the Times? But who, I mean, who's going to do that? That's, I guess, what I'm asking. We're talking about all these ideas, but,
Yes.
and that's where, what it comes down to is that we don't have somebody to do that.
Correct. We're correct.
So I know that like for basic press releases, I think we have an existing template that we use. I'm capable of writing those. And, Corinne's, we've coordinated in the past with Corinne to do Facebook posts and so forth on that. So that's how we could connect to the town's Facebook pages that way as a beginning step. When we take content from the stakeholder event, I would process that, provide it to Corinne. We could also then have a press release. We still have a database from our prior contact marketing that we used to do. So I could work that distribution list that we have and sending that information out, and that's local, regional, residents, non-residents, key stakeholders are on that list.
So if we have the town picnic coming up, so I'll be at the town picnic, so if I take pictures and so I just send it to Corinne and she'll put it on Facebook, and then somehow, some way it'll go like further than that. I mean, I don't expect my pictures of the Burns Harbor picnic to go viral or anything, but you know what I mean? Like, I guess I don't know how all of that works and how, I mean, I share on social, I run a lot of pages on social media, but I don't, how does it get out there past that? Are we just talking about a bigger presence on social media?
Well, I see it. Was that a hand? Are you raising your hand?
Oh, no.
Well, I think we can formalize the process a little bit more, kind of with a general work plan. One would be how do we target one looking at traditional media, and then what are the things, who and what are the activities we want to do under that. So if you did cover the town picnic, how do we translate that and make sure that the Chesterton paper gets it, as well as the Times, and who else might we have on our media list that would be interested in that content? And then we have the social media strategy, which is, how do we push it out to most people?
Like, what if we had the department heads, if we assigned the different weeks, each department had to submit something to Corinne for Corinne to post on the town's Facebook page. So, this week Bill's gonna post something about the fire department, whether it just be a snapshot of the guys in the fire department or whatever, just so that we have some sort of, something that's building up the followers on our social media. That's what we're trying to put out there, to have the different departments do something and post something.
I think that's a great suggestion, and that is something you don't want to add more to someone's.
Right, that's what I think. I don't want to give Corinne more to do.
If the fire department's, doing something inside the firehouse, take a shot of it. At this point, I know it's Corinne. I don't know who else has permissions to post, but she could forward something in just a simple line underneath that. It doesn't have to be a huge story every time, but at least you're producing more content.
Well, but we're kind of talking about two different lists here. I mean, there's a list for events on social media.
Mhm.
And then there's a list, I'm not sure that everything needs to go. We're talking about larger things like the opening of a section of the Marquette Greenway with photos, and that's going to interest inside Northwest Indiana business, the news organization. Our 5K run is not exactly or our town picnic is not exactly gonna be appropriate for a release to Northwest Indiana business or inside Indiana business or, you know, downstate stuff, you know, I mean, because
Yeah, so
so we're talking kind of two different lists here.
I think that we're talking something that we could do now versus something that we can't afford to pay somebody to do for us at this time. And I was just suggesting that doing what you're suggesting, just at a social media level at this point, is something more than what we're doing now. And then if we, when we have a larger event, if somebody wants to volunteer to submit a story to the paper or take, you know, charge of that, then we can do that as the events go on. But I think that if we want a bigger presence in the public, then social media is, you know.
I agree with you. I mean, we're kind of underutilizing social media, you know, for everything. I mean, we've got a lot of really good stuff going on in town. And, you know, large things, small things, and I don't know that we're taking full advantage, you know.
So if I may just say, really both, you're right, both ways that you're looking at it is appropriate, right? So you want to build awareness all around within town, outside of town, and Mr. Ensign, I understand that you're talking about strategically how we communicate to obtain kind of a level of awareness that state had a few years ago when we had a media person that was really getting the name of Burns Harbor in the paper, and we were winning awards and that kind of thing. So I understand the need for that level of exposure and audience. And then I also am aware that it's very important to build the base through the social media and these smaller things that, like, for maybe from more of a town council side, would be benefiting the town and help support kind of the redevelopment's goal of we need to attract that larger audience that can see, you know, the success we're having and want to come and have business here, buy homes, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a way to do it. And I think what I'm offering is we can come up with just a draft work plan that looks at traditional and social media, and let's see what kind of content we can begin to push out. And we'll start with the Mark Greenway project, looking at some key project activities, photographs, press releases we can do. And then if there's some kind of internal support to just get something more content out, we can do that as well. So I'd be happy to work on a draft plan and float that around internally in preparation for a more formal review next month, if that makes sense.
Start with, if you can, get the template for the press releases out, and once we have a date, let's advertise that ahead of time. With that press release template. Yes, ma'am.
This is a little ahead of your plan, but Village Land Company has a professionally developed 30-minute video that I believe focuses mostly on Burns Harbor location. I'm trying to remember if there's anything specific to Village Land Company. I think it's really more on Burns Harbor's location. If you're interested in using that in any way, we'd be happy to use it.
That's great.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I'm trying to get that.
If you,
Computer, because I don't have internet yet, and I will send it off.
thank you.
But another idea, just to keep in mind, Jerry David was back at the time, was a writer, and he always does these stories that have an interesting angle. I think Burns Harbor has some interesting angles that might be worth trying to put together a story for, and if you could get Jerry to get it like on the front page, which would be a great thing too. So just something to keep in mind. And for those of you who don't read the paper, it is available online.
papers since the Chester went away. All right. Good. New business? Approval of claims register.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes,
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Approval of financial report for the months of June and July 2022.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Ensland,
yes,
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Go to the order.
I would like to inquire what the possible opportunities for assistance might be in a TIP district that's already existing in town. Just general, not a commitment, just what's available for Burns Harbor in a TIP district.
I'm not sure. Could you clarify?
So for instance, Village Land Company has property on Route 20 that is in a TIP district. As we are beginning to market that for commercial purposes, when somebody sees TIP district, different people have different ideas what that means. It's not a pot of gold, so I was just wondering, within Burns Harbor, what is actually a feasible assistance that is given within our TIP districts that are already established? People ask.
Yeah, if I can speak to that.
You may.
Yeah, so we do have, and it's posted on the RDC page under documents, I believe. But we have the financial incentivization policy. That really is the guiding document on what's available through the town TIP districts. So what incentives could the town provide to a business? What might they seek from us? And it provides the parameters for that. That's where I would point to. I would defer it to you or Attorney Pat for any other additional.
That's the only thing I can think of. I would start there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else go to the order? Motion to adjourn. Discussion? Roll call please.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
yes.
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Adjourned.